So you've probably all seen it by now, the new patch that has come out to Battlefield 5 has been lackluster, and I did make a video on it a few days ago focusing mainly on the cosmetic drama and the fact that DICE have once again released things that weren't supposed to be in the game, but more importantly removed them incredibly quickly and created quite a lot of controversy within the community. It's not the first time it's happened, and it probably won't be the last, and it can be added into a mixture of terrible decisions and really underwhelming work that has plagued Battlefield 5 from day one. Now, Battlefield 5, as we all know, has been a complete rollercoaster from the very start. Recently we did get updates with regards to the AP mines, changes to the med boxes and alterations to the boys AT rifle, and the TDM and Frontlines game modes also got some changes too. However, these changes, although they were pretty good in my opinion, were hampered and overshadowed by the more pressing issues. The stuttering, the thing that I cannot get my head around because it is preventing me from playing the game, and it hasn't been there all the time, it's only come in recently. That's still in the game. This should be patched out the day after it happens, although I'm guessing DICE can't find the source of it and can't work out how to get rid of it. I'm saying that it's a game that might have all of these great patches and balance changes coming in, but if I can't play it because of a really significant stuttering issue that I've tried to fix but just can't get my head around fixing it, then I can't play the game. It's as simple as that. Now, I did intend to make this video stating that the recent patch would have been a turning point for the game because I really did think DICE would get it right, but as it hasn't been, I've had to rewrite the script completely, and I am writing a script for this one, or at least I've got some headings that I'm going to lead from, and I feel as if it's yet another disappointment, and we're going to have to wait a few more weeks or maybe even a month for another big patch to come along that might be the turning point for Battlefield 5, and that's really what I'm waiting for. I'm looking for a point that this game will turn on. It'll act as a hinge for Battlefield 5 to become a better game, and we saw it in Battlefield 4. A year or so into the game's life, new patches started to appear that fixed the game significantly, and it became a far better experience. Before that, it wasn't great at all. Yes, it had the ingredients to be a great game, but it wasn't the game that we all expected from DICE, and the same can be said for Battlefield 5, although some of those initial ingredients aren't quite in the right place in my opinion, but it can still be a good game. With those changes, or potential changes, and then the Pacific hitting our screens at a later date, I can safely say that Battlefield 5 will be in a better place for everybody that plays it, but that being said, now is the time for Battlefield to start improving, or in fact, that recent patch we had was the time for it to start improving. This is the turning point that we might come back and say in a few years, it was then that Battlefield 5 started to dramatically improve. The same thing happened to BF4 as I mentioned, and no one really expected it to happen, but it did, and the game became fantastic. Who's to say that won't happen with Battlefield 5? Now, in this video I am going to take a look at a selection of things that I still think DICE need to address, ranging from the limited time modes, something that I cannot get on board with, problematic vehicles, something that I have covered extensively in the past, potentially wasted opportunities, and then options they have to fix this into the future. Starting off, we have something that might not be much of an issue to you, but to me it's super irritating. Limited time modes. RSP will sort this out, but surely spending all that time producing a fun mode, such as grind, and then removing it, makes very little sense. I'm sure that DICE have their reasons for this, and they're looking at their data saying, nobody plays this mode, that's why we're removing it, and so on and so forth. But I'm really not sure what they're getting at here, because if somebody's playing the match, at least if there's one server running, then in my opinion that's enough to keep it going until everybody stops. I'm not sure how they allocate their resources over at DICE either, but I feel as if the people spending time creating these modes could be spending it on modes that need some love, such as Grand Operations. That mode is lackluster to say the least, but it doesn't have to be that way. Battlefield 1 had a very fun operations mode, and it was so popular that I think many chose to play it over the core Conquest mode. We haven't seen Conquest be contended by any other game mode in the same way Battlefield 1 Operations did, since potentially Rush in Battlefield Bad Company 2. DICE need to really focus on what's important here. Is having lots of different limited time modes what they really need at this point, or do they need to focus on making the core modes better experiences, and that's the same thing we saw in Battlefield 4. Yes, new modes came in with DLC such as Chain Link, China Rising had air superiority and so on, but I do feel as if at this point in Battlefield 5 the important thing is to keep the modes that people enjoy and make sure to refine them. Bombers are still annoying, and finding the balance between vehicles and infantry has clearly been a big effort in Battlefield 5. I understand that this is a tricky task, and it certainly can't be fixed in one simple patch, but Battlefield is all about the combined arms gameplay. If we can't get a situation whereby vehicles and infantry play alongside each other, I think we're missing out on a big part of what makes Battlefield, Battlefield. It's really tricky because on the one hand I want to play infantry only maps because I don't enjoy, for example, playing FL and getting constantly bombed by planes. But on the other hand, I want to play on a map where it's huge, there's loads of objectives, there's loads of tanks and planes, and I'm having great infantry battles on flags, and then I'm running across the map to the next flag and I'm playing alongside vehicles the old school Battlefield way. I just feel as if this hasn't been in Battlefield for quite some time, and maybe DICE are trying to focus on too many different things, and having trouble getting the vehicles and infantry to play together is something they've struggled with for quite some time. There is a need for more infantry-only maps and modes instead of half-baked efforts. Just have all-out war with combined arms on some modes and maps with a focus to the classic large Battlefield map experience, and at the same time, I don't see too much problem with having other playlists with only infantry modes and maps that focus with boots on the ground gameplay in a sort of Operation Metro, Operation Locker style. That way you're catering to all the players, and essentially you're doing what you're already doing, but you're making it clear that that's the approach you're taking. Balance in Battlefield 5, it's really no good at all. Check out this clip that I recorded with the M1A1 on Aerodrome. The real issue is that people cannot team switch, nor will the game balance them if there is a major mismatch. Maybe that's okay if the game would sort things out for the next game, but it never really does. The next match I played after this one was also imbalanced, and the same thing happened. If team switching was a thing, would I move to the other team? Maybe, in all honesty, probably not. Some may do, but I'm not going to sit on a team and then sit in my base getting spammed all game either. So I understand why some people think that team switching wouldn't fix anything, but it could be an option. All I can say though is having it in the game couldn't do any harm from what I can tell, and we're definitely in need of some proper server balancing. Maybe even private servers will fix this if we have the option to bring in some plugins that might fix this, or if DICE do give us some serious server options so we can balance things ourselves. Sometimes you do get bugs in a game, and I am the first to admit that I'm not really playing any games at the minute that don't have bugs in them. That being said, DICE should have ironed out a lot of them by now, and with this recent update I would expect things such as the plane sounds that were completely broken as they hovered over your head to be fixed, but some people are saying that that's still there, especially if you're in a down state. Those plane sounds are there. You've got this significant stuttering, you've got footsteps that are really neither hit nor miss. Some people have them, some don't. You have hit reg issues, you have invisible players getting killed around corners, and finally something that just annoys me, I'm not sure if it annoys anybody else, but quitting in Battlefield 5 takes so damn long. Look at this clip in the background. I click quit, I want to go back to the menu so I can choose to equip something that I've unlocked, because you can't do that in game for some reason, and it takes so damn long to do. It's such a shame. I think Battlefield 5 has the potential to be a better game, and I even think I'd consider playing it with a bit more passion if just a few of the more annoying bugs and glitches were fixed. The Pacific offers an opportunity to bring some interesting maps in a very popular environment, but if these bugs aren't fixed, things will not improve. A quick chat about Firestorm. What is that all about? Recently DICE did completely break Firestorm, but that aside, I feel as if the time, effort and resources that they've sunk into that mode was pretty mega, and for what? Yes, you could argue it's fun, or at least it was for the first few weeks I played it, but clearly the player numbers are not too high, and there are no signs that things will turn around. Making it a free-to-play could have been a better move, but saying that it would be far more successful with that free-to-play model and that approach is just speculation, For all we know, DICE could have made it a free-to-play and it could have flopped just the same. So I think something to take away from this is Battlefield is not a game and not a community that will just get on board with any hyped up game mode or genre that is the flavour of the month. That being said, Battle Royale is a bit more than a flavour of the month. It's the biggest thing I've seen in a long time in gaming, and I do feel as if DICE and Battlefield did have a part to play, but Firestorm just wasn't up to scratch. It had some pretty significant problems with it. It wasn't exciting or original in really any way, bar the Firestorm, but to be honest, I just thought that was like the gas in PUBG, but it just destroyed some buildings. If anything, it took away from the competitive side of the game and just made it more of an eye candy for those playing it. Often that has been the case in Battlefield 5. However, this Firestorm mode, it could have been much more than it was, and it wasn't. Just another thing to add to the list. I always like to think that the developers over at DICE work to create a game that satisfies a certain player base, but what that target audience is has got me a little confused. Back when I really got into Battlefield on the PC platform, and that's 2014 for those who don't know, the Battlefield audience was a mixture of players that wanted a competitive FPS with a different flavour to CSGO or Call of Duty, and maybe something with a little bit that they could get their teeth into. We also had casual gamers that only spent a few hours here and there on the game, and then the vocal community of Battlefield fans, military lovers, teamwork multiplayer gamers, players that enjoyed jumping on and having a session with all their mates on a game with 100 different ways to play in an exciting environment with loads of options from start to finish. This was a vast community, lots of different playstyles, lots of different players from plenty of backgrounds, and it was a great experience. Battlefield took a slight diversion with Hardline, but with BF1 we saw a game that really got people on side. Yes, the gunplay was approached from a slightly different direction, and I personally think the vehicles were terrible in comparison to BF3 and 4, but, and most can agree with me here, the entire game from start to finish was executed at a far higher level when compared to Battlefield 5. The marketing, the initial release of the game, the patches, the updates, everything was at a higher standard. Battlefield 5 has lost some of those core players, and more importantly, DICE might be having trouble working out who they are trying to appeal to with their game, alongside making a mess of the simple things that they got right in BF3, BF4 and BF1. Are they wanting to continue to juggle the mixture of comp players, vehicle players, casual gamers, the old school Battlefield players, and then the new core audience? Personally, I think that might be too many groups to cater for, and Battlefield could potentially benefit from focusing on a single group and then really nailing that experience. Go back to what made Battlefield Battlefield, or in my opinion, go for a solid mix of things that people enjoy, alongside a game that just works, without those stupid annoying bugs and updates that seem to take 2 steps back instead of that step forward that we're looking for. Let me know what you think of this video, and of course the topics I spoke about in the comments. I'm sure that Battlefield 5 will take a turn towards a better game soon, but DICE really need to sort some of these problems out, and I think that this is the time for that turning point to turn this game into something better. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.